Homan was the same guy who said there was a deal with Eric Adams. He said, if Adams doesn't come through, I'll be back. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, where the hell is the agreement we came to? Which brings us to the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bovee, because he was also involved in that transaction. Yeah. What became of the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bovee?
Yeah, Senator Whitehouse, to correct you for one moment, that would be the Honorable Judge Emil J. Bovee III to you.
Not at the time of this. He was an employee of the Department of Justice. And what became of the OPR investigation?
It's all pending litigation,
misconduct?
Senator. I can't discuss pending litigation nor personnel matters.
OPR customarily publicly says when there's an investigation, and at the end of it, they provide a summary. Why can't you say whether there's an OPR investigation?
Watch this carefully. A U.S. Senator asks one of the most basic questions imaginable. Where did the money go? And the Department of Justice simply refuses to answer. Not classified, not complicated, just unanswered.
White House. Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Bondi, good morning.
Good morning.
What became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI paid to Mr. Homan in a paper bag, evidently?
Senator, as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review by the FBI, agents, and DOJ prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing.
And that was not my question. My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts.
Are you saying that they did not deliver $50,000 in cash to Mr. Homan?
Senator, as recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review by the FBI agents, by Department of Justice prosecutors. They found no evidence of wrongdoing.
That's a different question. What became of the $50,000? Did the FBI get it back?
Mr. Whitehouse, excuse me, Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to talk to the FBI.
The report to you, can't you answer this question?
Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to discuss this with Director Patel.
Did Homan keep the $50,000?
As Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr.
Never mind.
Homan
I can see I'm not going to get a straight answer from you to a very simple question.
By the FBI agents and the DOJ. They found no credible evidence of wrongdoing. You know, you're very concerned about money and people taking money, and you rail against dark money.
Wait a second.
You work with dark money groups all the time, Senator Whitehouse.
Did you know whether or not in that investigation they looked at whether the $50,000 payment to Mr. Homan was declared by him on his tax returns?
Senator, I would be more concerned if I were you when you talk about corruption and money that when you pushed for legislation that would subsidize your wife's company.
The questions here are actually pretty specific. So having you respond with completely irrelevant far-right internet talking points really is not very helpful here. I'd like, Mr. Chairman, you generally like to have us be able to get answers to know, and we'll follow up with the QFR. And to the extent Patel wants to answer, that would be great as well. What happened to the $50,000? Did Homan keep it? Did the FBI get it back? If he kept it, did he put it on his tax returns? Pretty simple questions. Homan was the same guy who said there was a deal with Eric Adams. He said, if Adams doesn't come through, I'll be back. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, where the hell is the agreement we came to? Which brings us to the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bovee, because he was also involved in that transaction. Yeah. What became of the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bovee?
Yeah, Senator Whitehouse, to correct you for one moment, that would be the Honorable Judge Emil J. Bovee III to you.
Not at the time of this. He was an employee of the Department of Justice. And what became of the OPR investigation?
It's all pending litigation, Senator. I can't discuss pending litigation nor personnel matters.
OPR customarily publicly says when there's an investigation, and at the end of it, they provide a summary. Why can't you say whether there's an OPR investigation and whether, if it's concluded, there's a summary,
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
even public ones?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
So, Kash Patel told this committee that his grand jury testimony after immunization, after initially pleading the Fifth, was, and I quote, sealed by the Department of Justice. How and when and why was his testimony sealed, and by whom?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss any testimony, especially testimony that could be sealed with you.
No, the question is, was it or was it not sealed?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss that with you.
Well, he also said that he worked with the Department of Justice to have his transcript released publicly. How and when was his transcript released? Presumably, if he released it publicly, that's something you can discuss because it's public.
Well, Senator, I believe you discussed that with Director Patel.
And I'm asking you because he said the Department of Justice made this decision and you run the Department of Justice.
I would refer that to Director Patel.
Even though you run the Department of Justice and he testified that the Department of Justice released his transcript publicly.
If it is released publicly, we will get you a copy, Senator, gladly.
If being a rather important word there, when your FBI director testified that that was a fact. Treasury compiles suspicious activity reports, referred to often as SARs, that DOJ receives automatically. Hundreds related to accounts of Jeffrey Epstein. How many of those Treasury SARs did you or Director Patel investigate?
Senator, I'm not sure if you're concerned because you took money, I believe, did you, from Reid Hoffman, one of Epstein's closest confidants, not only once but twice in 2018 and 2024, if that's correct. But, Senator, did you ask Merrick Garland any of this over the last 4 years when he sat before you? This investigation has been going on. This investigation was closed. Did you ask Alex Acosta that?
And Patel came to office, you said you would look into this. There were hundreds of suspicious activity reports. Some people would deduce from the fact that they are called suspicious activity reports that there might be suspicious activity. And yet you seem to have looked at 0 of those suspicious activity reports involving Jeffrey Epstein accounts. Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that? Okay. Here's what well, no, we cut to something else. The Marshal Service is supposed to protect our federal judges. I have asked repeatedly for the Marshal Service to let me know if they are investigating or being inhibited from investigating whether or not there is orchestration of threats against federal judges, whether under either conspiracy laws or racketeering enterprise laws or aiding and abetting laws, whatever. But as you know, there's the person who says the threat, and then there may very well be somebody orchestrating the threat behind them. Mm-hmm. Is the Marshal Service allowed to investigate orchestration of threats, and do you know if they've taken one step to do so?
May I answer the question, Chairman Grassley? The time has expired.
I think it's the convention of the committee that if I've started my question in my time, you may answer the question.
I was asking the chairman.
What you just witnessed wasn't simply a tense Senate exchange or a politician trying to score points on camera. It was a live demonstration of how accountability breaks down when institutions decide that answering basic questions is optional. At the center of this moment is a question so simple that it almost feels absurd to say it out loud. If the FBI delivered $50,000 in cash to a private individual, what happened to the money? That's it. Not a legal theory, not an accusation, not a demand for classified material, just a request for facts. Did the FBI get the money back, or did the individual keep it? And if he kept it, was it reported as income, as required by law? For most Americans, this wouldn't even be a conversation. If you received $50,000 in cash and couldn't explain where it went, you'd already be in trouble. The burden wouldn't be on Congress to chase answers. The burden would be on you to prove you didn't break the law. But what you saw here was something very different. Instead of a straight answer, you saw a pattern, one that matters far more than the personalities involved. Each time the senator narrowed the question, the response widened into abstraction. When asked about the cash, the answer shifted to whether investigators found credible evidence of wrongdoing. That may sound reasonable at first, but it's a sleight of hand. Whether wrongdoing occurred is not the same question as where the money went. You can answer one without answering the other, and the refusal to do so is telling. Then came the deflection. When clarity was demanded, the response turned personal. The senator's motives were questioned. His donors were brought up. Irrelevant political grievances were injected into the exchange. This is a classic strategy when facts are inconvenient. Muddy the water until the original issue disappears. And it didn't stop there. When the conversation moved to internal DOJ oversight, specifically whether the Office of Professional Responsibility investigated prosecutorial misconduct, the answers became even more opaque. Americans should understand this point clearly. The DOJ routinely confirms when OPR investigations exist and releases summaries when they conclude. This is not unprecedented. It is standard practice. So when officials suddenly claim they can't even acknowledge whether such an investigation exists, that's not about protecting confidentiality. That's about avoiding accountability. The same pattern appears again with sealed testimony. When asked whether grand jury testimony was sealed, the response wasn't yes or no, but an outright refusal to engage. Yet moments later, it's acknowledged that some of that testimony may have been released publicly. That contradiction matters. If something is public, it can be discussed. If it's sealed, that decision has a process, a timeline, and an authority behind it. Refusing to clarify those basics sends a clear signal. Oversight is being treated as an inconvenience, not a constitutional responsibility. Now let's talk about the Epstein-related questions, because this is where the stakes escalate. Treasury suspicious activity reports are not rumors. They are formal alerts generated by financial institutions when transactions appear unusual or potentially illegal. The DOJ receives them automatically. They are not partisan documents. They are raw signals meant to trigger scrutiny. So when a senator asks how many of those reports tied to Jeffrey Epstein were reviewed, and the answer is essentially none, Americans should pause, not because of Epstein's notoriety, but because ignoring suspicious activity reports undermines the entire financial crime enforcement system. If these reports matter when investigating ordinary citizens or political opponents, they must matter when they involve powerful figures too. Otherwise, the law is no longer blind, it's selective. What makes this exchange so alarming isn't just what wasn't answered, but how casually the refusals were delivered. There was no urgency, no concern about public confidence, no acknowledgement that Americans are watching an institution dodge oversight in real time.
This is what people mean when they say the guardrails are gone. It doesn't mean democracy collapses overnight. It means the small mechanisms that once forced transparency stop working quietly. Oversight hearings become rituals instead of accountability tools. Questions get asked, but answers are optional. And here's the most important takeaway. This isn't about left versus right. It's not about defending Trump or attacking Democrats. The senator asking these questions is a Democrat. The frustration you hear isn't partisan, it's institutional. When Congress cannot get basic factual answers from the Justice Department, power consolidates behind closed doors. When agencies decide who deserves answers and who doesn't, the public loses its role as the ultimate authority. Americans deserve better than rehearsed deflections and political theater. They deserve a Justice Department that understands it works for the public, not above it. Because once accountability becomes conditional, it doesn't stop with one hearing or one administration. It becomes the new normal. If moments like this make you uncomfortable, that's not cynicism, that's awareness. And awareness is the first step toward demanding better. If you believe Americans deserve real answers, not evasions, support independent accountability. Share this, stay informed, and don't let silence become policy.